Welcome to the Dreamboat. Remember, you can join the DRI for just £30 a year. You get access to more content, including videos and discounts for our events. It's a great way of finding out more about our work, joining our dream community, and supporting this podcast. Details in the show notes and at driccpe.org.uk/membership. Welcome to the Dreamboat podcast, a place where we talk about everything dreamy, all you wanted to know about dreams and where you might find some answers. My name is Dave Billington, and I'm a psychotherapist, and I'm also director of the Dream Research Institute. And I'm joined by fellow psychotherapist Laura Payne.
Hello, I'm Laura Payne, and I'm also part of the Dream Research Institute. And we're called the Dreamboat because we are recording our podcast overlooking the beautiful canal barges here at Little Venice in London.
We'll be looking at dreams, talking to guest experts, and answering your questions.
Now, let's get on with the episode.
We talk a lot about dream sharing, and you've heard me say, keep dreaming and keep sharing your dreams, and the importance and just the joy of talking about your dreams with other people. And people do ask us about dream groups. The DRI, Center for Dream Studies, which is our parent organization, does have year-long dream groups that people can participate in, and training groups for therapists who want to know about their own dreams, but also learn how to work with other people's dreams. And we have occasionally weekend workshops where you can come and meet other people who are interested in their dreams. And there's lots of things around like this where you can have that experience of sharing something that is beautiful and precious for you, which is your dream, and having other people be interested in it and not dismiss it, which is a really lovely experience.
What do people actually get out of it, Dave? How does it actually work? So if you join a year-long group, that's a massive commitment for a lot of people. But so what happens? How does the group actually work, and what do they get out of it?
So there's sort of stages that it goes through, like with any group, right? That people are getting to know each other a little bit. They're testing out the space. They're finding out what's it like to talk in this group. And when we're talking about these groups, they're 4, 5, maybe 6 people maximum. So it's quite an intimate group. And what happens is that, first of all, people have that initial experience of, this is a space where I can talk about this, and people are interested, and maybe people have thought about these things before. It's a facilitated space, so there's a dream guide there, which would be me sometimes, and maybe some other of the facilitators that we have. And people go into this process of sharing their dream and going deeper into it and starting to understand. I always talk about the language of the unconscious, the personal language that you and your unconscious are trying to form together. And it takes a while to figure out what the symbols are, and we're going to talk about that at another time. What are the experiences, where they come from, what they relate to within you. And over the course of the year, people get into a much deeper relationship with their own dreams and with their own deeper consciousness. But what's really lovely as well is that there's always a little bit of a group process going on in which people get to know each other very well. We've said it before here many times that when you share a dream, you are sharing something at a level that you don't even know how deep that it may be, how deep it goes.
Yeah. I was thinking again that whole notion of the Jungian collective unconsciousness really hits home when you're in
Absolutely.
a dream group.
Yeah.
And that, keep dreaming, keep sharing your dreams. in a dream group, there's an intensity that builds up and common symbols amongst the group. I find I spent a year in a dream group with Dr. Nigel Hamilton, who, our boss, for want of a better description,
the founder of the DRI.
Yeah. Exactly, the founder of the DRI. And I was with 4 or 5 other people. And to begin with, we were checking in our dreams. We didn't know each other. By the end of the year, we became really deep friends because we had shared our innermost material. It's such a profound level. And we started finding that we would dream about each other, which I found quite interesting, but also we started sharing dream symbolism in some way. And that is so Jungian, that the notion of a collective unconsciousness and the notion of shared archetypes that transcend personal experience in some way. It was utterly fascinating.
Yeah, I think what happens is that, you relate to somebody else's experience, whatever it might be. But if it's a dream experience, you relate to that dream experience. And the number of times I've heard people in groups say, well, yeah, so this was the dream I had, and it really reminded me of your dream that you were talking about last week, and you were saying that what that meant to you, and I really resonated with that. And so, yeah, it does get shared, this kind of energy and the symbols and some of the ideas and the experiences get shared around the group. Like you, I had a very similar experience of being in my training group with Nigel for a couple of years. And I still meet with that group of people. We meet once a month to talk about our dreams and work through dreams with each other. That's been going on I can't even know how many years it is now, but it feels like a long time. And
what a wonderful commitment.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't feel like a burden or a commitment. It's something that we look forward to, and it's just, again, a space where it's people who really know you kind of inside and out in that way.
Yeah. Well, they also become guardians of your dreams. I remember, you'd have a dream. I would have a dream, completely forget about it. So it's a bit like, a walking dream journal. And somebody would say, you had that dream last year. And you think, did I? Oh, yes, I did. I'd completely forgotten that. So it's again, you're sort of guardians of each other's material, which I find really lovely.
Yeah. Yeah, all those things that you might conveniently forget otherwise.
Or people start recognizing patterns in your dreams that you yourself haven't seen. So again, that notion of working in a peer group, is it works on so many levels, particularly as we're talking about dreams here.
Yeah. So the groups that we run and what we're familiar with are oriented around, not exclusively, but mostly the waking dream process. So we've used lots of different methods, and work with association and so on. But we do that dream revisitation, and that's where the real depth comes from in re-experiencing the dreams, and there's a real healing in that.
Reliving it.
Yeah.
We should say that we have done a podcast in, I think, our first series or second series about the waking dream technique, if anybody wants to have a bit of a refresher on all of that.
That's right. Yeah, Dr. Hamilton came in and talked about it. There are other kinds of groups as well, and other ways of working. So we have those in-person groups, and then there's online versions as well. And during the pandemic, I continuously ran my groups through over Zoom, working online, and also participated in and eventually ran some social dreaming matrix groups, which is a very different way of working, where it's just about bouncing around associations in the group. And it can be a much larger group as well. I did it for an online conference. I did one which I think had about 30 people in it, something like that. And basically someone just starts off, they share a dream, and then not one after another, but in any particular order, people say, oh yeah, that reminds me of this. And it might be that it reminds them of a dream that they had, or it might be, oh, well, wasn't there something in the news about that, or I was reading about this. And those associations just get bounced around for a set period of time. It's 45 minutes in this particular technique. And then you have a little break, and then you come back and you do a consolidation. So the facilitator in that case is making notes and just writing down what these associations are. And then you come back and you talk through that. And together as a group, you look at what the themes are. And what happens is that if you do that, well, even if you do it once, it's really fascinating to see the links and the connections that are between a group of potential strangers that might walk into this. But if a social dreaming matrix group meets again and again, then you start as well to see these themes that run through and what's shared. And the idea is that it reflects what's in the collective, that what's in the kind of shared psyche, be that socially, culturally, or maybe in a particular geography, that there's something that starts to tease out when you see these themes. It's like, okay, this is what the collective unconscious is working through at this time and in this place. It's really fascinating.
I really like it. Yeah, you're making me think about the almond dream technique,
right,
which we discussed with when we interviewed Professor Mark Blagrove and Julia Lockhart.
Yes, the Dreams ID.
The Dreams ID, yeah. I know, it's not something that we actually do at the DRI, but if anybody's looking for an almond group, I'm sure and that's ULLMAN.
Yes, Montague Ullman, the Dream Appreciation.
Yeah, and just tell me a bit more about it, Dave. Can you remember how Ullman, what the process is for Ullman? I can't remember the varying stages myself.
Yeah, and he was quite strict and didn't want any variations, as I recall. Yeah. But having seen Professor Blagrove run through it a few times, there can be some slight variations, I think, that are brought into to good effect as well. But so there's a dream is, first of all, it's told, and it's just listened to from start to end. Then the facilitator asks the person to tell the dream again, but asks for some more details. And this is particularly the way that the Dreams ID pair do it. Some of it is because there's an image being made of the dream as well at the same time. But the dream is retold and sort of asking for extra details. And then I think this is where the Ullman process really comes in. The group that's there will give their reflections, but it's done in a very particular way, which is to say, if it was my dream, I would X, whatever it might be, I would be feeling, or I would be interested in that, or I would be reminded of. And it's a very respectful way of rather than saying, I think you need to look at this, or this is what this means for you, being that kind of directive and maybe overpowering interpretation. It's just saying, right, well, this is how it is for me. And those reflections are shared, again, in a time-limited process. And the dreamer then can respond and say, okay, yeah, that really resonates for me, and what that's reminding me of is this, and so on. And so it becomes this shared experience, which in Professors Blagrove and Lockhart, they did their research around empathy, and they found that the people who heard the dream had increased levels of empathy towards the dreamer. And that it didn't necessarily go the other way around. That was the other interesting side of it, because the people in the audience, so the rest of the group, are not actually sharing anything of themselves. They're just reflecting something back of the dreamer.
Yeah, I think another good reason for perhaps joining a dream group or setting one up yourself is this notion of heightened empathy. And there is something about hearing not just somebody's dream, but their own interpretation of their dream when they then try and align it with what is happening in their life. And if the group sits and meets enough times, a real deep trust and faith tends to come into the group, because you're being vulnerable. You're sharing your psyche in some way. And there's the whole sense of real deeper healing in the way that you have with meditation groups. There's this almost like a joining of brain waves, for want of a better description. And I was going to say, you don't have to go to a formal dream group, or even a formal, or finding something online. If you're keen, in the way that book clubs are springing up, Dave and I were musing how fun it would be, and we are interested in setting up a sort of almost like a dream club network, whereby we might be able to help you support a dream club in some way, helping you, give you some tips and advice on how to run a dream club. And then we're looking at whether quarterly or monthly, depending on demand, where we could provide a Q&A session in some way for ideas that have come up from your dream club, or questions that you might have. So at this stage, we would say, look, if you're interested in setting up your own dream club with a group of friends or people, then let us know. We think that this could be a real good, fun way forward of, if you can't find a dream group in your area, which is normally the way, obviously the DRI bases its in-person dream groups out of London. And I know people who travel from all over the country to come to the DRI to attend these groups weekly.
Yeah, and should say as well that there's the online versions that
Yes.
Melinda Powell, co-founder of DRI, provides as well. So she's usually running a couple of courses a year and doing some webinars and workshops as well that she provides exclusively online for those people who can't come in to do the in-person
which is
ones.
lovely, isn't it? Yeah. But if you are interested in setting up a dream club, get in touch with us. We'd like to hear from you, because we think it's quite an interesting way forward for the dream community to expand and grow in some way that we can support at a distance.
Yeah. And I've seen the benefits. Well, I've experienced the benefits, as I've said, and I've seen the benefits from former students, former Dream Group members who are still meeting, sometimes just in pairs, once a month on a Monday. They get together and each share a dream and talk about it. And, again, that's with that sense of knowing each other well and maybe having some knowledge around it. But it's not that important that you have a lot of knowledge. It's about being willing to share and ask questions and be curious. A lovely way of working with dreams is to create images of them. You don't have to be a great artist. That's not what it's about. It's about getting something down on paper and you see it in a different way, and maybe somebody else that you show it to sees something else in that image as well. I think it's just a fun way. It's better than being on your phone scrolling through Twitter for that particular hour.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. There's nothing better than drawing your dream, even if you're not an artist. I'm not an artist, but I have a book of dreams that I've drawn and sketched over the years. And very often you might forget the dream, and then you visually see it, and suddenly the dream is coming back to you in such a powerful way. It's a great discussion tool as well, if by taking the dream image to your group and everybody saying what they think they see and what it might represent. Again, almost it's an extension of the social dreaming matrix idea that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
I think the other thing I would like to say is mentioning Melinda Powell. Obviously, Melinda runs lucid dreaming groups, and that's just slightly different from just a general dreaming group.
As well, yeah.
And exactly. So, and lucid dreaming groups, Do you actually have to know that you're a lucid dreamer, Dave, or does Melinda take on beginners?
She does take on beginners. And in fact, one of the things that she says is that there are things you can do to stimulate lucid dreaming, which we've talked about here as well, but that it's about a lucid approach to life, actually, about having that awareness and being able to practice that when conscious, when awake. And then that also translates into how you experience your dreaming as well. And the waking dream process is a wonderful tool for that, because it allows you to be in that kind of imaginal realm, in the dream material, but with that consciousness, with the ability to make decisions and take different directions, and not just be a passive participant in that experience. So it all really comes together in that.
I was thinking of our very ever first episode was with Robert Wagner, who is, I'm tempted to say famous lucid dreamer, and he has some interesting techniques. And also, I think he runs lucid dreaming groups, or he used to run lucid dreaming groups, and. I think one of the exercises that sometimes lucid dreamers do in a group is that they agree to meet each other while asleep, and I find that quite funny that the group actually meets while they're asleep rather than afterwards.
Yeah, good trick if you can do it.
Yeah, exactly. But and again, there's something about the bonding nature of this form of sharing consciousness in some way.
Yeah. One of the bodies that we belong to, which is the International Association for the Study of Dreams, the IASD, based in the US, they have an annual conference, and they have some regional conferences in different places each year as well. And it's this highly, and the one side of it, kind of very academic, very intellectual, all about the kind of cutting edge research. But another part of it that's really essential to it is that there are a number of morning dream groups that you can go to, and different sort of theoretical backgrounds, different perspectives on it. But those groups fill up every time,
Yes,
and even whether it's
yeah.
scientists or punters or therapists or whoever else it is, there's just people really want to have this experience of going in there and having that shared space to talk about what happened last night, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, I ran one of the Asclepian dream groups once at one of the conferences, which was fun. And there were about 10 of us in the morning group, and we were specifically looking at the Asclepian images. Again, I seem to be saying, we've already done a podcast on that. And in fact, we have done. And if you're interested, there is an earlier podcast on the Asclepian technique, because the ancients were doing this. They were dreaming in groups and then coming back and discussing the dreams and looking for common themes in that way for healing. But you could argue that dream groups now are still a form of healing. In sharing your dreams brings great satisfaction 9 times out of 10, particularly when people have an idea about it that you hadn't considered yourself.
Yeah,
there's something in that dream narrative that you share with other people that makes it a very special experience.
Yeah, that really makes you look at people around you in a different way when you think about all the wonderful adventures and all the people that they might be in their dreams every night. They're not just the person you see in front of you.
So carrying on with the notion of dream groups, I think Dream of the Week has actually come from somebody in one of our DRI dream groups. So over to you, Dave.
So we've had this dream for the Dream of the Week. It was submitted online. The dreamer is asked to remain anonymous. And I'll just read it out, and then shall we have a little bit of a chat about it? It's the white face mask, one normal eye and one small eye dream is the title that they've given it. So dream starts with, I was dreaming that I was dreaming in my bed. which is always a good start. In my dream, I felt the presence of an energy with no form beside my bed, which felt dark and negative. So I started to chant incantations in my mind, aimed at the dark energy to dispel it. And I realized I could partially wake up. So I got up from my bed in a half awakened state and continued to aim my incantations with my mind, with the feeling of anger and the intention of destruction at this dark energy which had angered me. And then the dream changes slightly as I am no longer aware of the presence of the energy, but curious about the mirror in front of me, still in my bedroom. I approach the mirror and curiously look into it, knowing there's a possibility that the reflection could be ugly or distorted. And I'm surprised that the reflection is more pleasant than ugly. I notice that my face is the color white, but then remember that I went to sleep with a white face mask on my face. What is unusual, though, is that I have one eye, and upon looking closer, notice that the no eye is, in fact, very small in comparison with the other. So that's a kind of a spooky one. It reminds me of when we were talking to Alice Vernon about some of her parasomnias and the kind of experience she'd have of being sort of, dreaming she's dreaming, or, thinking she was dreaming, but actually being awake, and how the reality can start to blur a little bit.
Yeah, I was struck about the number of oppositions. So taking an alchemical stance, and we've talked about some of the alchemical symbology in dreams before, and the notion of opposition. So we have here dark and light, as in there's this dark energy, and then there's the white mask that she's wearing. Then there is anger and destruction, and then we have ugly and pretty as when she's in the mirror being splitting as well. So there's lots of splitting. So white and dark, one eye open, one eye shut, one eye large, one eye small. And there's a lot about distortion of the visual energy in some way. And I was intrigued by the mirror. And also we have lucidity in the dream. So we've got dreaming and awake dreaming, which arguably is also a form of splitting in some way, which is, a technical phraseology, obviously, for oppositions. The psychotherapist in me wants to call it splitting, and it's very primal. It's very early. The splitting function happens, according to Kleinian's Melanie Klein, around the age of 2 or in the pre-verbal state. So there's something very young in this in some way that is being tapped into, it feels like.
Yeah, that splitting with, it's kind of like black or white. There's no middle ground, that kind of thing. Yeah, and I love that you picked up those oppositions. That's great. There's something about image and self-image in here as well. I thought that in the second part of the dream, looking in a mirror, and it's, so what does a mirror show you? It shows you something about how you are perceived, or how you perceive yourself. And from the very beginning here, it says, I look into it knowing there's a possibility that the reflection could be ugly or distorted. So there's a sort of a wariness about what one might see of oneself, which is, often, we start to look into ourselves, we can be a little bit scared of what we might find out about ourselves. And I'm surprised that the reflection is more pleasant than ugly. And so I'd be really, I want to say sort of compassionately curious about, for this person, why is that there that expectation that what you might see in the mirror would be ugly, would be unattractive. And then again, we're talking about the visual, the one eye, and looking at one eye, and one eye is large and one eye is small, so small it appears that there's almost no eye there. And the dreamer doesn't actually say which eye it is, do they?
No, that's a good point.
I'm curious then about when you talk about those oppositions, left and right, and what that might represent. But it's like, if one eye is small, it's like what can't you see on that side? What is it that can't be taken in on that side? And as opposed to the side where there is the normal eye.
I was thinking while you were talking in terms of how to work with this dream. As you know, we talk about the waking dream technique and how interesting it would be to take the dreamer in a dream group, so that we relate this, but obviously back to the subject of this podcast. That it would be interesting to get them to look back in the mirror, go through the dream and look in the mirror again, and encourage them to see what else is there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that could be very, very rewarding. Again, it has a very, as I said, a very young feel about the dream. The psychotherapist Melanie Klein, who did a lot of work around early childhood material as part of the psychodynamic community that was being formed. I think she was a client and a student of Freud, if I can remember rightly. It's a very young age, that sort of, it's the age of forming self, she would say, the sort of age of splitting, where it's things are either good or bad. I mean, the Kleinian's famous phrase is good breast, bad breast, where the child at the breast is deciding whether it's good or bad, and how very young that is when we start making decisions about whether something's good or bad, good or evil,
and based on our
whatever.
needs. That's right.
Exactly.
It's the good breast or the good mother is the one that feeds you, and the bad mother or the bad breast is the one is withheld.
Yeah. And clients will say that when you're in this splitting phase of oppositions, it's a very young place. It's where you are deciding what it means to be human. What is it like to be this self? What is this self that is emerging, this identity, this personality, this ego? And there has a slight feel of that in this dream.
I strongly agree with that. Yeah. And something else that's important to that phase is, and the reason why we might maintain that kind of black and white thinking into later life, into adult life, or maybe just in certain parts of adult life, is that it's a way of keeping safe. That we feel like, if the good and the bad are actually coming from the same direction, then the world must be crazy, or maybe I'm crazy, and I can't stand it. It's not a thought process, but it's just a kind of defensive reaction that says, no, good is in one place. There's something perfect and ideal over there, and I'm going to hate and stay away from the bad that's over there. And now the world is orderly and makes sense. And of course, it feels a little bit more, a little more contained in that way. But why that was coming up for me then was that the beginning of the dream, it's, the first thing is that there is this dark energy, something that feels dark and negative, and in the bed, which is actually, it's kind of makes my skin crawl when I hear that. It sounds it sounds pretty scary. They don't really say too much about it, but really interesting that this person who says they don't remember, there's this in the introduction, I rarely remember my dreams, but somehow managed to remember this one.
I'm not surprised.
But somebody who doesn't remember their dreams has this method of dispelling something, of saying an incantation in their mind. And I remember talking to one of our lucid dreaming guests, Ryan Hurd, and he was saying about his sort of lucid nightmares he had when he was a child.
Yeah.
And how he learned that he could use his own lucidity to work through those nightmare scenarios.
Yeah, there's very much a sense of that happening in this dream as well, as you say. Yeah, I like that. Well, thank you for whoever sent the dream in. It's a really powerful dream, actually, and I think it was came out of a dream group? Was this dream actually discussed in a
No,
group?
no, this was something that was submitted online.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you for sending your dream in.
Yeah.
Very nice to hear from you and giving us the opportunity to work with it. And again, this is something that would be for a dream club type of. This is the type of thing that you could discuss within a dream club or a dream group in some way.
Yeah. All right. Yes. So thank you very much, and thank you for listening.
Sweet dreams.
And keep dreaming, and keep sharing your dreams.
So, thank you for joining us for this week's episode. Don't forget to like us and leave comments on your favourite podcast platform. As I'm sure you know, that's the way we build an audience for the Dreamboat podcast and also to spread news about dreaming. And as we said, there are many ways you can share your dreams at the DRI, the Dream Research Institute.
Yes, we have courses, events, and workshops, and we want to hear from you. So check out the show notes for links, or find us on Instagram and on our Facebook page and on our website at driccpe.org.uk. And if you want to explore your dreams further, or you would like to support us, you can join the DRI as a member for just £30 a year. As a member, you will get discounts for all of our events and short courses. You'll get our newsletter with latest dream research news, and we'll also be adding other special member benefits during the year. Of course, members' dreams will always be given preference for reading on the podcast Dream of the Week slot. So go to the link on the show notes and become a DRI member today. Keep dreaming and keep sharing your dreams.